You know, there's this saying that goes, an idle's mind is a devil's playground. And it's very true. Another quote I like, I think George Carlin said this quote. He said, "Never let the brain be idle. An idle mind is the devil's workshop, and the devil's name is Alzheimer's." Or Alzheimer's. You know, you got to keep your brain active. You got to use your brain. The brain is like a muscle. If you let it atrophy like a muscle, it stops working properly. But this also applies to daily life and in your own psychology. And since Mgtow have a lot of time on their hands now, it's something to be wary of. It took me a long time before I realized this about my own psychology, and it took a lot of trial and error. But it is true. An idle's mind is the devil's playground. There was a period in my life when I was working in the film industry, and I was working with a production company. I was busy every single day, whether it was looking up contracts, whether it was doing research and looking up, companies, talking to people on the phone. Whether I was in meetings, I was in meetings all the time. Um, constantly busy all the time. And when I got home, I was exhausted, and I didn't want to think about anything other than relaxing. And it is important for you to keep yourself as busy as you possibly can. And the reason why is because if you let your mind wander, right? If you don't have anything to do and you just sit around and do nothing all day long, and this is just my experience, when I left the film industry, and after going from being busy all the time to not doing anything at all, yeah, it's fun for the first 2 weeks or so, maybe a month because you have time off, but that shit gets really old. And for me personally, I started sinking into almost a depressive state. In a lot of ways, I did because I didn't have anything going on in my life. You know, I was busy all the time, and then I didn't have anything to do. And then it only was until I realized this, just until of recently, that you have to keep yourself busy. You got to keep yourself busy. And because Mgtow, we have a lot of free time on our hands now. We don't have to put up with a marriage or kids or women or any of that stuff, unless you have an ex-wife or you do have kids. But for people that don't have kids and aren't married and are bachelors and single, you have a lot of free time on your hands. And you have to be careful with that free time, and you got to stay busy with that free time. I whether it's me doing projects around the house, repairing the house, doing yard work, doing research. I keep myself as busy as I possibly can now. Now that I've realized how my own psychology works and how the brain works when you don't do anything. If you sit on your butt all day long and not do anything all day, you will go into deep depression. Trust me, because you have nothing to do. Your mind starts to wander. You start overthinking. You start coming up with different things to think about because you have nothing else to do. And then that becomes a behavioral pattern, right? Because you don't have anything else to do. And so you got to keep yourself busy or you will fall into a deep depression. Most people do, because when you don't have anything to do, like the quote says, the idle mind is a devil's playground. You start thinking about things that don't even matter. You start overthinking. Your mind starts going places that lead you to other places that end up having you considering certain things, and then before you know it, you sink into some kind of deep depression, right? And you can't get out of it. And people always think, well, gosh, I got all this free time and I don't have to worry about anything, but I feel terrible. It's because when you have an idle mind, your mind wanders all these different places. It's very important to keep yourself busy with something. That's a very important. It's a very important thing that a lot of people overlook. Is to keep yourself busy, because that's how we're going to be able to get through this without. A lot of men, they wonder, how can I get through this? How am I going to make it through all this crap that we have to put up with? The secret is to keep yourself busy. Whether it's working out, whether you go do work, whether it is research, you have to keep yourself busy, and you got to involve some kind of physical labor in there somewhere. Because if you work hard, you're tired, and you come home and you get that kind of euphoric feeling, that dopamine releases in your brain because you're tired and your muscles are sore, and you're not the only thing you care about is to relax and take a break. But when you allow yourself to sit and do nothing, you're building up energy in your body. And when that energy doesn't have anywhere to go, it can start attacking yourself. It attacks your mind. Demons work in the mind. They work through your mind and through your psychology. And so that's why that quote says, an idle mind is the devil's playground. You have to keep yourself busy. Um, in terms of survival, let's say, for example, a shit hits the fan happens. And you're more than likely going to be keeping yourself busy because you're not going to there's just not going to be able to, you're not going to have time to afford the luxury of sitting and doing nothing, because you're either going to be watching out for people that are trying to kill you, or you're going to be searching for food. And so people that are very active and they're always doing things, they tend to be more happy. They tend to be, the depression and things of this nature tend to not affect them as much. And people say, well, it's about keeping yourself in shape and healthy and it's working out. Well, that's only part of it, but it has to do with your mind as well. I see a lot of men, and like I said, it took me a long time before I realized this, but when you have too much free time on your hands, it can turn against you. Right? I sunk into depression. I was miserable, and I didn't know why. I thought it was just because life is monotonous and there's so much crap around me and everything sucks. That was only part of it. The other part of it was that my mind was starting to work against me. It was starting to diddly-daddly in places it shouldn't. I started to overthink everything, which made me emotionally exhausted. I started thinking, well, what if this happened? What if that happens? You don't have to. A lot of the time what happens is your mind starts to come up with things. And your own psychology, it starts to manifest different outcomes or different things because you're free of time, and you just start thinking about different things. Right? You don't have anything to do, so your mind just starts wandering different places. And this stuff can lead you to a lot of mental problems. So an idle mind is a devil's playground. You have to keep yourself busy. Keep yourself as busy as possible. This is some advice I give for men that are recovering from pussy addiction. Keep yourself as busy as you possibly can. Don't have any free time except on the weekends, and relax. Keep yourself busy. Busy, busy. Because you're active, you're keeping yourself occupied with something else, and you're not allowing your mind to wander. I think one of the big side effects of free time, especially when it comes down to not having any women in your life, is that when you do have free time, you start thinking, well, I want to have a woman around, right? And then your mind starts going down that road, and then nothing can come good out of that road for somebody who's trying to separate themselves from that situation. All right, you start going on Facebook. Before you know it, you're bored. You're sitting at home, and then all of a sudden you go on Facebook, and then you look up a picture of an ex-girlfriend, and then you look that she's single. And then before you know it, you send her a message, and then everything goes to shit after that, because you were sitting there with free time on your hands, letting your mind wander in those places. People that are recovering from addictions, you have to keep yourself busy so that your mind doesn't have time to occupy with whatever addiction that you're recovering from, whatever that case is. You have to keep yourself busy. Same thing applies to women, and same thing is going to apply to Mgtow. Keep yourself busy. The world is going to hell in a handbag every day. People are just a mess. I've mentioned this so many times. America is an idiocracy, and people don't they just don't care, and good, good for them. Fuck them. Like I said in my previous video, screw them. I don't care, because you can't save everybody, and you can't control people either, and you're not supposed to. You do your thing and they do their thing. If you sweep your side of the street, they're supposed to sweep their side of the street, and everybody gets along just fine. You gotta worry about yourself before you worry about other people. And one of those things is to keep yourself busy, especially with Mgtow. We have a lot of free time on our hands. Now that I don't have any women in my life, I don't have to worry about, all that other crap. It's just me and what I want to do. And it took me a while before I realized how my own psychology works, about what happens when you say, what if I just don't want to do anything? Well, what ends up happening is your mind starts to destroy you. Right? You start letting your mind wander in all these different places, and then you get depressed because you're thinking about the past, or you're thinking about the future, or any of this stuff. When you keep yourself busy, the only thing you're preoccupied with is whatever you're doing at the time. And if you work hard, by the time you get home, you're too tired to worry about all the other bullshit. And that's the key. That's the secret. You have to keep yourself busy. Every day you have to do something. Keep yourself busy. Work on a project. This is one of the reasons why, or one of the many reasons why I wanted to start a YouTube channel. Because it allows me the opportunity to keep my mind busy. To help me do something and also have it benefit other people. Other Mgtows. By uploading videos and all this kind of stuff. And that's another reason why I wanted to do it. So, keep yourself busy. This is one of the little secrets or tips that are going to help men get through the difficult times. Is to keep yourself preoccupied with many different things. Another thing is, a lot of men say, well, I don't want to be lonely, if they're just coming into Mgtow. I tell them, keep yourself so busy, have a network of friends you talk with, have a hangout every week, every weekend, go work out, work in your yard, maintain your home, or if you got an apartment or whatever the hell, paint your house, do repairs, do little improvements, change out the doorknobs, whatever it takes to keep your mind busy, do it. Right now I'm working on several different projects at my place here. I got a whole bunch of home improvement work to do, and I'm keeping myself very busy. And what I find is that my personality changes. My personality changes when I keep myself busy, because like I said, an idle mind is a devil's playground. Your mind starts to wander in places you don't need it to wander. You start thinking about and for me, it's different for me because, I just my own personality. I'm a Scorpio, and I have Venus in Scorpio. And, like I said, I've taken the time to research about my own self to such a degree, such an in-depth level. I know how I work by learning all these different, teachings or whatever to help me learn about myself and learn about other people. And for me, that was a big issue, thinking about the past. I always thought about the past. What could have been? What should have been? What if I could have done this better? What would happen if I did this? And that caught myself into a whole nother set of a mind maze, if you will, that I had a very hard time escaping from. A very hard time. And that was my biggest obstacle that I ever had to overcome, and I finally have come to the point in my life that I'm overcoming that. Because I've realized that when I keep myself busy, I don't worry about the past. I don't worry about the future. I worry about what's happening right now. Yeah, I think about the future. It's just, planning and stuff is essential. It's common sense. But when you have too much free time, your mind starts going all these crazy places. And that can be a downfall of a man. It can be your downfall, and it was almost my downfall. I went into a deep depression. My God. It's so crazy how to think that by doing nothing, you can destroy yourself. It's Because people's minds are just, it requires the environment, it requires all these different key elements in order for you, if you were to have to sit down and do nothing but not let your own mind take a hold of you and destroy your psychology and yourself. It takes a lot of work to master the art of being idle without letting that devil side of the way that your psychology works take over you. And that's how men are gonna think. That's my little advice. That's how men are gonna make it through with any difficult time, is to keep yourself busy. You know, keep yourself so busy that by the end of the day you're exhausted. As part of you rebooting your mind and improving yourself, you have to keep yourself busy. I can't stress it enough to you. Watch what happens when you don't do anything for a few months and a few years. You'll start to find that your personality and your psychology starts to settle in a very dark place. You might not think it could be that way, but trust me, I've been there before. When you don't do anything for a long, long time, your mind starts to eat yourself. Your mind starts to eat your brain, so to speak. Your psychology starts to turn against you because you're letting yourself wander all these different places. Life becomes very monotonous, very boring. Life becomes very mundane, you know? And life is very monotonous and mundane. You get up, you go to work, and you come home. But what you do in your free time will determine how you deal with the daily monundum. I can't say that word. Is it monundum? Whatever. The daily monotonum, the monotonous activities that you have to do what you have to do to survive here. You know? So, that's all I wanted to say today. Keep your mind busy. Keep yourself busy. The idle mind is a devil's playground, and also with George Carlin's quote, he said, "Never let the brain be idle. An idle mind is a devil's workshop, and that devil's name is Alzheimer's." The brain is a muscle. You have to keep it working. Always be learning new things. Always try to improve yourself. Keep yourself busy, and you won't be worried about women. You won't be worried about what they're saying. You will have no give a shit about it because you will be so busy in your own world doing different things. But do things of substantial benefit. Don't just sit and play video games all day long. I like to play video games, but I just don't sit there and do it all day long because that's not stimulating your brain. You see, all this technology, like the smartphones and all this stuff, it doesn't really stimulate that part of the brain that allows you to get that satisfaction from doing some good hard manual labor or a really intense workout, or researching really fascinating things. It doesn't do that. It's just point, click, and respond. And that in itself is mind control. That's why this technology is being targeted against the people, is a form of controlling their minds. Because when it's just simply point and click and respond, you're not stimulating those parts of the brain which end up becoming idle. And those idle parts can begin to manifest in all kinds of different things that you don't want to know. It's like, I mentioned this in the hangout I did with Messenger. I said, when you start learning about your own psychology, when you start diving into those really dark places in your mind, trying to figure out how to fix them, it's like taking a trip through the abyss. Because in many ways, your mind is the abyss. Your mind is the abyss. It is a place of darkness. It is a place of things that manifest that cause you to act a certain way. And when you don't, when you're on that process, sometimes people get lost and they don't come out of it and they get stuck there. In many ways, when you have free time, you get stuck there. You get stuck in this certain kind of personality that you have adapted based on your behavior, and also based on the fact that something as simple as you not being active and doing things and keeping yourself busy will lead you to be stuck there. And so, keep yourself busy. That's how us as men, that's how we're going to get through this. We live in a difficult time. Women are non-supportive of us. But so what? We're going to keep ourselves busy. We're not going to let our idle mind be the devil's playground and let ourselves start thinking about all the horrible things that are going on. We're going to keep ourselves as busy as we can, and we're going to do our thing. And meanwhile, the rest of the people can go fuck themselves, as far as I'm concerned. Let them get caught up in all their bullshit while we figure out how we're going to deal with this problem and how we're going to improve ourselves and how we're going to try to lead the best life possible that we can, while everybody else wants to buy into the brainwashing. They want to buy into the mainstream news and the politics. Let them do it. Let them keep eating the fast food, clogging up their arteries and having a heart attack, and then one day they find themselves laying on a hospital bed going, gee, what caused me to have a heart attack? I didn't know that. Well, you kept eating like a fat ass for 20 years. Doing nothing but sitting on your ass and eating because your idle mind is the devil's workshop, so all you did was eat. You ate and did nothing. You see how many problems can result to doing nothing and having an idle mind? You know, people eat when they're bored, they eat when they're sad, they eat when they're happy. They eat junk food because it makes them feel good, and they sit on their ass and do nothing, so they get fatter and sicker. You see how destructive not doing something can be on you as a person? Imagine what it can do to your own psychology. Keep yourself busy. You know, 1984, when Winston, I kept thinking to myself, you know, I read that book, and I said, man, these people, that kind of life just must be horrible. They don't do anything. All they do is go home and go to work. But I realized something. I think the way that a lot of the people that went through a communistic government is that they kept them as busy as they possibly could so they wouldn't have time to worry. And yes, I do know that, you know, this whole thing, keep them busy, busy, busy on the farm so they never have time to think about what's going on. But you use that to your advantage, not to your downfall. They only keep them busy, busy, busy because those people are not willing to look at what else is going on. They're only worried about what the one side of whatever it is that they're doing. They're not actually thinking about what's causing it. But for you as a Mgtow, for you as a man going your own way, and you've decided to separate yourself from the mainstream and all these things that you've been told to believe and things to do and all this other crap, when you separate yourself, you have a lot of free time, but you have to keep yourself busy, because the idle mind is the devil's playground. Hope everybody had a good one. Hope you enjoyed the video, and take care.